Friday afternoon, the New York Liberty lock in their entire championship core. Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, 3-year contracts through 2028. Longtime basketball fans already know this playbook. This is Red Auerbach's Boston Celtics in the 80s. Bird, McHale, Parrish, the original Big Three. Stars take less, the banner stays. It's one of the oldest moves in NBA history, and Jonathan Kolb just ran it in Brooklyn. Here's the number Herb Simon should be staring at this weekend: $210,000. That's what Stewart left on the table. She was eligible for the $1.4 million supermax. She signed the standard max, $1.19 million, instead, on purpose. Ionescu took the same contract structure, and in 48 hours, Saturday 3 p.m., Barclays Center, those same three stars walk onto a court against Caitlin Clark. This is the WNBA preseason opener. The first real basketball Caitlin Clark has played since last summer's ankle and groin injuries cut her sophomore season to 13 games. And the first live look, in basketball, not press releases, at what Kolb has actually built. Here's what Clark is walking into: a 4-time All-Star guard in Ionescu, the first overall pick from 2020, now in her 7th season. A former MVP in Stewart, 10 years in the league, 3 championship rings, 2 finals MVPs. A finals MVP in Jones, a former league MVP and the player who put the Liberty's first banner in the rafters in 2024. A 2-time All-Star in Satou Sabally. Kolb got her introduced Friday morning, before the championship trio even took the stage. Plus, Betnijah Laney-Hamilton back on a $400,000 re-sign after missing all of last season. 5 All-Star names on one roster. 5. The Liberty are installed as the betting favorites for the 2026 title. Every book has it. And Indiana has 2 days. 2 days to do what? Exactly. Here's the honest answer. Herb Simon walks into Saturday with Caitlin Clark on a rookie deal. Aaliyah Boston on a rookie extension staring at her own supermax vote this summer. Kelsey Mitchell on the $1.4 million supermax that finally closed last week. Sophie Cunningham re-signed. Lexi Hull on a qualifying offer. Michaela Timpson already under contract. And then, the cliff. Back at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, training camp opened Sunday. 16 players fighting for 14 spots. The rest of the roster is a stack of veteran minimums, training camp invites, and 3 rookies from the 2026 draft. Head coach Stephanie White has already said it out loud. On the Query & Company podcast, Clark doesn't need every rep in practice. The priority is keeping her standing up. Which means Saturday afternoon is the first full contact evidence of whether the supporting cast around Clark is closer to New York's bench or closer to the bottom of the league. And the betting markets have already given you their answer. The Liberty didn't just build a team, they built the team. So, about that 2-day window, Indiana has roughly $3.6 million in cap space left after the Mitchell extension. That's real money. In a league where the cap is $7 million total, $3.6 million is over half the room, enough to bring in one veteran rotation piece who would genuinely change what Saturday looks like. A backup wing, a stretch 4, somebody. The players are still out there. Free agency is still open. The phone works, the cap is there. Everyone who has watched this franchise for 4 years knows exactly what Herb Simon does in moments like this. He waits. He talks about responsible spending. He lets the preseason show him what everybody already knows. He lets the regular season show him again in May. He lets the first month of the season show him a 3rd time in June, and then doesn't act on it until July. By which point, the best options are already on other rosters. The Sparks got them, the Aces got them, the Liberty got them. That's the pattern, that's the concern. That's the 2 days. And here's the part that should sting worst for anyone watching this in Indianapolis. The Liberty's owner is Joe Tsai. Billionaire. Joe Tsai writes checks. He chartered private jets for his team when most of the league was still flying commercial. He pays the luxury tax in the NBA. He also owns the Brooklyn Nets. He treats the Liberty like a real franchise. Brand new Brooklyn basketball training center. Front office investment. Marquee free agent signings introduced at press conferences the same week. Herb Simon is also a billionaire. He has been the longest tenured owner in the NBA. He owns the Pacers, too. He has had 40 years to learn how a championship franchise operates. And the entire offseason for this Fever team has been run on the quietest budget in the championship tier. 2 billionaires, same league, same cap rules. One is building a dynasty, the other is letting Caitlin Clark walk into Barclays Center on Saturday with a training camp roster. That is not a cap problem. That is an ownership problem. And everyone in the league office knows it. Older Fever fans know this story already. 2012, Tamika Catchings, Finals MVP, the only banner this franchise has ever raised. One title in the entire history of the Indiana Fever. 14 years ago, Catchings played 16 seasons in Indianapolis, 10 All-Star appearances, 4 Olympic gold medals, Defensive Player of the Year 5 times. She is a Hall of Famer. She gave this franchise everything. She got one banner, then the front office let the roster fall apart around her, and she retired in 2016 with no second banner because ownership never reinvested. That's the weight sitting on Caitlin Clark's shoulders right now. Same franchise, same ownership, same pattern. You can hear the difference in the quote that came out of Brooklyn on Friday. Stewart, on her own podcast, said this, quote, "We need to make sure we're able to really keep all the best players on the team," end quote. That is an owner's philosophy coming out of a player's mouth. That is what happens when ownership sets the tone from the top, and the stars follow. Red Auerbach used to say the same thing about his Celtics. The whole is worth more than the individual check. Joe Tsai has built that culture in Brooklyn in 3 years. Herb Simon has not built it in 40, and his stars know it. So, Saturday afternoon at Barclays. Here's what to watch. Watch the scoreboard at the end of the first quarter. Not the third, the first. Because the Liberty's starting 5 is going to be on the floor together for the first time since last September. And if the Fever bench is already trying to plug a gap by the 8-minute mark of the second, you already have your answer. Watch how many Liberty starters Stephanie White thinks her team needs on the floor just to stay in the game. Watch Caitlin Clark's minutes. If she plays 18 minutes and it still looks like Indiana is drowning, that is not on Caitlin Clark. That is not on Kelsey Mitchell. That is not on Aaliyah Boston. That is on the supporting cast Herb Simon chose to send them out there with. That is the part he can still fix. The part the 2-day clock is counting down on. Saturday is just a preseason game, but it's also the first real evidence of what Herb Simon's entire summer is going to look like. If Saturday turns into a blowout by the third quarter, the summer is already written. The regular season opener against Dallas on May 9th is already written. The June stretch is already written. If Herb Simon makes a move before tip-off, I'll cover it the minute it happens. Subscribe and turn notifications on.